It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the second day of World University Summit 2024, Universities of the Future, a global partnership of social justice and sustainable development. And today we are going to be engaging in a panel discussion on dilemma of the discipline, STEM or social sciences or both. My name is NEELU and I teach at Jindal School of Environment and Sustainability. I'm honored to be moderating this session today, and I welcome our distinguished panel and guest. So before we begin the session, let me introduce our panel. We have with us Dr. RAJAN WELUKAR. Dr. RAJAN WELUKAR is the Vice Chancellor of Atlas SkillTech University. He is an eminent ethicist and has more than 36 years of experience in the Indian higher education system as a teacher, development leader, quality innovator, technology adopter, administrator, and policy advisor. As a policy and opinion leader, his passion for making a difference in the lives of the learners and the implementation of several development initiatives have made him a highly acclaimed higher education professional. Over the last decade, Dr. WELUKAR has held several leadership positions with reputed educational institutions such as Vice Chancellor of Mumbai University, G.H. Raisoni University, Yashwantrao Chavan University, Maharashtra Open University, and Auro University. He has worked on various important committees of the National Knowledge Commission, University Grants Commission, National Assessment and Accreditation Council, NANAC, Film and Television Institute of India, Central Government, State Government, Future Generation University, USA. Dr. WELUKAR is also a member of numerous committees and associations and industry bodies across the globe. In the past, Dr. WELUKAR has proved his mettle in non-academic roles as well, including Senior Program Officer at Commonwealth Secretariat, CYP Asia Region, Deputy Secretary to the Governor of Maharashtra, and Officer on Special Duty, Higher and Technical Education Department, Government of Maharashtra. We are honored to have you with us, Dr. RAJAN. We have Professor Dr. S.P. Singh with us, who is the founder and Vice Chancellor of the Assam Royal Global University, Guwahati, and is presently serving third tenure as Vice Chancellor of this university. Professor Singh has been heading institutions of repute for the last 22 years and has 34 years of experience in teaching and research. Prior to his current position, Professor Singh was the Director, Sherwood College of Management and Vice Chairman of Sherwood Group of Institution, Lucknow from 2001 to 2009. He also worked as Founder Director of Royal Group of Institutions, Guwahati from 2009 to 2013, and later served as the MET Group as Senior Vice President and Founder Vice Chancellor of MET University, Chhattisgarh from 2013 to 2016. Professor Singh was a former member of the Executive Council of Dibrugarh University as the Honorable Governor's nominee, Assam Task Force. Presently, Professor Singh is active member of the Universal Peace Federation UPF India chapter since 2019 and has been conferred with the Ambassador for Peace Award by UPF, South Korea. Member of Indian Chamber of Commerce, National Expert Committee on Higher Education and Training. On 1st November 2022, Professor Singh was appointed as Global Vice President of Sun Moon University, South Korea. Professor Singh was appointed as an academic consultant with Association of Indian Universities in May 2023 as Honorable Member of the Equivalence Committee of AIU and Governing Council Member of AIU in July 2023. Welcome, sir. Welcome to this session. Looking forward to engagement with you. We have Professor Dr. JAIDEEP Chatterjee, Dean, Jindal School of Art and Architecture, OP Jindal Global University. Professor Chatterjee, also popularly known as Swiss Army Chief Chatterjee, is an obsessive-compulsive multidisciplinarian. He is an architect, a historian, and an anthropologist. With a doctorate in history of architecture and urbanism, and another one in socio-cultural anthropology from Cornell University, JAIDEEP's academic inquiries traverse questions of design, visual nature, technopolitics, social formation of expertise, popular culture, and nationalism. His research on architects and design as a form of knowledge in post-colonial India has been published with prestigious academic presses worldwide. JAIDEEP has taught at several universities, including Cornell, the University of Cincinnati, and the University School of Architecture and Planning, Delhi. In addition to his academic pursuit, JAIDEEP also actively collaborates with designers, architects, artists, and filmmakers to work on many interdisciplinary projects. In his free time, he trains his pack of street dogs along with his German shepherd Norbu. Is also a science sci-fi nerd who loves to cook and deconstruct everything from restaurant menus to milk cartons. Welcome, Professor JAIDEEP. We have with us Professor Dr. TEJPAVAN GANDHOK, Vice Dean of Jindal Global Business School, OP Jindal Global University. His applied research interests are in learning, innovation, leveraging immersive engagement and biofeedback-based objective measures for better strategic thinking, and in better appreciating the role of subconscious cognitive processes for adaptive strategic decisions under high flux and uncertainty. Pawan is a serial entrepreneur with a strong track record of investor returns and successful exits, including startups, high growth, and turnarounds. He also has 20 plus years of international senior partner level corporate advisory experience in country and regional head roles across Australia, USA, Southeast Asia, and India, with strategy consulting and private equity firms such as Health Scion Partners, A.T. Kenery, Stern Stewart and Company, and the Boston Consulting Group. In earlier career roles, he worked in corporate strategy, technology management, and incubation, and as an engineer and research scientist. Pawan is an Indian-born, US-educated Australian citizen, former permanent resident of Singapore, and an overseas citizen. Welcome, Professor Chandu. Yes. So before we start with the discussion, let me just set the background of what the discussion is really going to be focused on. So if you look at the dilemma of the disciplines that we talk about is more and more becoming relevant today. The question to whether pursue STEM, which is the traditional science, technology, engineering, or maths, or the social sciences or liberal art courses is something that bothers or confuses both the parents and the students. We have to understand that we are at times of technological advancements, and we have AI and coming into our lives. It has penetrated all areas of our living. It's making us it's keeping us more and more challenged, so as to say. And with all these things going on, we have problems of today's world, problems of climate change, problems of poverty, problems of hunger, and so on, which cannot be just taken care of technology. We need professionals with different, skill sets, with varied skill sets, who can work together and effectively find solutions. So with this background, I would like to begin by asking each one of you in turn to, lay foundations of what this discussion should be in a few opening statements. I would invite Dr. Rajan WELUKAR to give his opening statement. Dr. Rajan.
Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to be one of the panelists. And good morning, everyone, those who are attending and those who are speaking in this panel discussion. We have somehow found ourselves in a culture of putting STEM and the humanities and social sciences against each other, as if there are two separate highways which never meets. And this confusion we have created. We can't write because we are scientifically minded, or we can't do math because we prefer to study people. That is the kind of confusion which we have created. And therefore, because of that confusion since several decades, today we are actually talking about interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, and transdisciplinarity approach. We have created a false truth. There is a theory of false truth. So we created a false truth. The problem with this is that the quality of being a critical thinker is independent of the discipline and is important for all the disciplines. Being able to think logically, structure your ideas, determine cause and effect, and communicate your findings is crucial, no matter if you are building an airplane or studying the downfall of an ancient civilization. And we know this. We are well aware of all these things, whatever is happening. I'm sure that most people would not disagree with the statement which I have made. Nevertheless, we choose to engage in this characterization of different areas of thought that goes a little too far. It's completely okay to narrow down your interest. No issue. You can always think of your passion, narrow down your interest, whether it be in writing prose or a software engineering or becoming a technocrat. But it's not okay to assess the strengths and weaknesses of others solely based on what they do. Nor is it okay to talk down about your own abilities or close doors for the passion, the hobbies you have, and other interests just because of what you have chosen to pursue as a primary career. Again, if you want to devote your career to one side of the line, whether that be engineering or law or medicine or art, that's awesome. Doesn't matter, whatever you choose. The whole point is to do what you love. But to be successful in most careers, it's important to be well-rounded, which Sri Aurobindo talked about, the four aspects of education. And though we have such a wisdom with us, we have digressed with the wisdom which has been created in our country as well as in others. And this is not just hearsay. Many of the famous Renaissance figures that we still talk about were polymaths. This polymath is a Greek word meaning person of a great and varied learning, or individuals with a wide range of knowledge and learning. Knowledge flourished as the sciences and the humanities had no assumed polarization. Friends, I would like to give some example on this. For instance, not only did Leonardo da Vinci paint stunning works such as Mona Lisa, we only know him that he has painted as Mona Lisa, most of the people. But he also recorded 13,000 pages of scientific studies related to anatomy, related to mathematics and engineering. He first conceptualized the parachute. Many people may not be knowing about it, as well as a more accurate clock for his time. Another example is of Galileo. We talk about it. Then we talk about Copernicus. We talk about Nikola Tesla. We talk about Albert Einstein. And the list goes on. The dichotomy that exists today is false, which I said that it is a false truth which we have created around the STEM and social sciences and humanities. STEM teaches you how to be process-oriented and comfortable with numbers. The social sciences and humanities teaches you how to understand human behavior, how to understand society, how to communicate about complex and interconnected ideas. Both teach you how to be structured, persuasive, and creative in very different and beautiful ways. And it even feels wrong to generalize so many unique disciplines under one of two umbrellas. I remember I had invited one of the Nobel Prize winner in 2011 in University of Mumbai to deliver a lecture. And when I was talking to him, he was an athlete, participated in Olympic, and in a high-level event across the globe, which is Olympic. And he was a Nobel laureate. When I asked him about his background, he did physical education, graduation in physical education. Now you can imagine in our country, that is the last choice. to do a Bachelor of Physical Education. Then after doing Bachelor of Physical Education, he did post-graduation in biochemistry. The admission was given. Here in India, we will not give admission. The admission was given to him, and he got a Nobel Prize in chemistry. When I asked him, how did you get, what did you do? He said, I have used 6 to 7 different disciplines to get a Nobel Prize. Maybe physics, maybe psychology, maybe microbiology. 6, 7 disciplines he used to create a concept and prove that concept. And after that, he got a Nobel Prize. Whoever has achieved that kind of position have already realized that there are now no 2 or 3 super highways which never meets with each other. And therefore, I think we need to stop this confusion which we only have created in the minds of students. If you want a success in your life, anybody now onwards will have to bring the perspective of other disciplines into their own discipline. Then only they will be able to move ahead in their own life. Students have understood. Universities will have to understood. The academic institution needs to understand and needs to deliver that kind of delivery system. And I don't think we have that kind of great training in our country. We give training, but we don't go into the depth. Unless and until we go into the depth, we will not be able to do it. This is what I just wanted to put my views. I am sure we have less time, and therefore I stop here.
Dr. Rajan, you have beautifully given the example of Renaissance period, which talks about, knowledge can flourish only when we have this, interdisciplinarity and not this dichotomy that we have created. So moving on to Professor S.P. Singh, can you give your thoughts on this topic and also talk about how in our, system of education, how do we break this dichotomy of STEM versus STEAM or social sciences that we know of?
Thank you, Dr. NEELU. First of all, thank you very much, OP Jindal University, for giving me a chance to be part of this STEAM panel. And I'm very, very fortunate that last year also, I think WELUKAR Saab and me were in the same panel. So we are meeting after 1 year almost virtually. And also to OP Jindal University fraternity. I think to begin with, I would say that because once such a elaborated discourse has been given by Dr. WELUKAR, I would say that it was not an introductory remark, it was a concluding remark. This is my personal opinion. The personal opinion in the sense because once we were trying to find out and I was trying to find out my way of thinking about STEM, humanities, together or separated or highway or my way. So I thought like this. And fortunately, if I was just going through some literature yesterday and otherwise my children are into STEM, I started my journey of life with the STEM education. I'm basically into science. Then as I moved on, I decided to leave science. I decided to be into humanities and management. So, I mean, what I probably would like to say in maybe 5 to 7 minutes is that there's no doubt about one thing, that STEM and humanities, they go hand in hand. And I would say that it is a confusion or maybe demarcation which has been created. It has not been created by any university or by parents or by anybody. It is basically has happened, and therefore OP Jindal has put up this topic in front of us because it has been done on the basis of the jobs available in the market, the job type and also number of jobs, and the pay packages, and the countries which are growing based upon STEM education. 2001, when the United States of America has decided to make this nomenclature STEM, because it was been found that in the United States of America, students are not going for science education, STEM education. It has further gone to Australia, Korea. The huge number of countries have been part of this STEM education, and it was a deliberate effort to rejuvenate STEM education. It has been found that over the years, the students have got less interest in STEM, and countries thought 20, 25 years back that if at all they will not do it, probably the science gradually will fade away and the innovations and technology will not come forward. This is a very statement been written, No Child Left Behind, NCLB and other in 2001. India also, I'm working in Assam. I tell you, the number of science graduates are gradually, 12th pass student of science are gradually diminishing. There's a huge, thing has been done for STEM education in this part of country last 10 years, so that number of students take up science. But taking up science doesn't mean you have been categorized into STEM. Taking up science, I'm also a science student, but I never thought science is the thing, which is the only thing I have to do in my life. I mean, the holistic education, what we are talking about today, the well-rounded personality we are talking about today, going beyond 4 aspects of education, if I say 64 kalas of what Sri Krishna has learned and have a holistic personality, I would say that education in totality, it may be science, it may be humanities, it may be social sciences, liberal arts, it should completely carry this forward. The dilemma between science and STEM is not, probably in my opinion, has been created by the people who are doing science and somehow are able to take the benefit of humanities also. Like in CBCS, choice-based credit system, our universities are trying to do it for many times. Some of them are doing it, some of them are making mockery of it. I'm not talking about who are not doing and making mockery. I'm talking about who are doing it religiously. It has been found that many students of ours who are into STEM education, maybe engineering or physics, they are learning Kathak, they are learning Kathak, they are learning all other humanities, and some of them are doing, even fine arts. We have some of them are doing fashion. So this combination has already started in some of the universities, including Royal Global University, from very beginning. But some of them are doing it for the sake of doing it. Some of them are doing it religiously. So it all depends how you bring together, because when we probably conclude, and as I said, Welukar ji has already, we cannot live in isolation. I mean, STEM educated people and STEM professors, and if at all we just think that STEM is the thing and we are superior or inferior or whatever you think about, it is nothing a matter of superiority, inferiority. It is only a matter of your choice, your interest, your heart, where it lies. If at all my son is doing maybe computer science, it doesn't mean that he do not have interest in music. He do not have interest in any other thing like Leonardo da Vinci is having or anybody else. So everybody has, something. But then the dilemma which is there, it is there. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It has been created by society. It is created by people like us who think that science is a good thing. STEM education will bring you more benefits. STEM will give you more laurels. STEM people are more intelligent and many, many things. At the same time now, other countries, they think STEM educated people are technocrats. They are and they are not having very innovative brain and mind. Their psychology, their philosophy is not well versed off. So therefore, in AICT also, if I remember rightly, 30, 40 years back, all engineering graduates were supposed to study sociology. They were supposed to study psychology. They were supposed to study all other humanities. But what happened? They are always been considered to read it as a subsidiary subject, not as a main. People who are not been able to bring social aspect into engineering education and engineering aspect into social education. I am absolutely not in favor of universities which are universities for humanities, which are universities for one particular discipline. It has to be a multidiscipline. That is NEP also says, because if we will create separate university for separate disciplines, this dilemma will further increase. This mindset will further change. This mindset will further continue. And to bring it together, we should have multidisciplinary. And I think we are in that direction. I mean, our university is in that direction. 90% of the universities of this country is in that direction. But teachers has to train themselves and the administrator has to groom themselves so that they can bring both together. And there should not be And gradually, I mean, nature has a way of balancing things. When STEM will be more, humanities will emerge out and try to balance it. And when humanities will be more, STEM will emerge out and balance it. Nature keeps on balancing it. Our mindset keep on balancing it. So this is my initial thought. I'm open, but then, as you rightly said, I have probably answered that universities with multidisciplinary approach, the universities will CBCS, and now we have GE courses, general elective, are inculcating humanities and science together. And I think people should not worry about it. They should listen to their heart, take up any discipline, but continue with both. Life cannot be done with STEM alone, cannot be done with humanities alone. It has to go hand in hand. That is the way I think about this topic. Thank you so much, Neeru.
Thank you, Professor Singh, for bringing many important questions into the discussion. You talked about the jobs availability at the market. You talked about the pay disparity that is there, and more importantly, the fund. If you look at the fundings, which is now currently, I believe it is more biased towards the STEM courses. So, moving to Professor JAIDEEP Chatterjee, I would want to ask you how do you what are the challenges at the moment as administrative administrator or university administrator? How do you think what are the challenges that lies with the university, given that the funding, you look at the fundings, you look at the jobs that are available at the market, and how do you convince your own young students who are coming into the system? Or how do you open the door and break these the boundaries that is there in their minds? Professor Jaideep.
Thank you, Neelu, and thank you to the esteemed panelists, and thank you for having me here. I think both Dr. Welukar and Dr. Singh have actually laid the topic open really wonderfully. Speaking of challenges, and Dr. Welukar mentioned this, I'm going to stress on it with even more force if I can. The biggest impediment to all of that is us academics. Can I tell you that straight up? We are the problem, right? And we are the problem because, for the longest time, right, we have been trained in what I like to call a 19th century way about what is knowledge, right? And it comes at it, and you have to understand that this idea of knowledge was, Dr. Welukar mentioned it, Dr. Singh mentioned it. This was not there pre-19th century. That's why the Renaissance is such an important time when something like this does not happen. But in 19th century, something very interesting happens, starting in some places like Germany, actually, where we see this difference. And, there are philosophers called Dewey who are writing on this. And there's this interesting difference between something called Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft, which being the natural sciences and what I call the sciences of the spirit, the social sciences that are there, right? And what you see is this kind of a thing that keeps coming down. And for all of us who are academics, we start to think of knowledge as a very funny territory. I'm always fond of asking academics, what is the shape of knowledge? Can any of you tell me that? Is it a square? Is it a piece of land that you think you have a territory on it? It is not, right? If any of us really sits down to really imagine what is the shape of knowledge, we will realize that knowledge has a shape which we cannot humanly possibly imagine. Then why do we divide it up like a territory? We use actually very bad geometry to talk about something that is far more complex than a natural Euclidean geometrical space. You see what I'm saying? Knowledge is not, it does not have center, periphery. It does not have, these are funny ways of talking about knowledge. What Dr. Welukar and Dr. Singh mentioned that in their own ways, right? What is this? When you say you have a division, you are imagining that some piece of land, you can actually draw a line on it. How can you? Is it like a land? Is it an object? Is it a cup that I can say I can half fill it? Is it a bottle? Is it a room? Why do we? And the problem is that and then what happens is, universities have forwarded this idea by creating, but things like colleges, departments, head of, this entire structure is a very territorial structure if you think about it. It actually keeps in mind all of these ideas. So sociology can only be taught by those who are in the sociology department because they live in an area called sociology. No, that's not true. This is interesting. And in our country, we seem to have really, really fine-tuned this more than anywhere else. Now, I don't know if I can talk about myself for a second. I went off to Cornell. I was teaching there. One of the things that was wonderful about Cornell was, and the founder said, I would found an institution where you can study anything. And I started off, and I was started off as an architect. When my master's was in cultural studies and history of architecture, my first PhD is in history. My second PhD is in anthropology. So what do I call myself? I'm a historian, anthropologist, architect, designer, all of those things. And they allowed me to study like that. Right. And I took minor in philosophy, I took a minor in art history, I took a minor in government studies. Right. The structure allowed, because at the graduate school level at Cornell, you were not part of any department. You were actually a student who was in the graduate school, and you could stand up and say, I want to take a course there because I love taking that course. I want to take a course there because I can love taking a course there. Right. Now, in this thing, thank God right now we have finally come up to say, okay, we must have choice based, and the CBC, NEP is allowing that. Right. But the fact of the matter is, in our country, very interesting, and this part of it has to do with our colonial history itself, You have to understand. We were experimenting. The entire education system in India was an experiment where, of a particular kind. And that created these very strong barriers, which were then bureaucratically institutionalized as a result. Right. And we see in India the worst. And, then this translates to what the philosopher Antonio Gramsci calls into common sense for the society. Right. So there, you have the points that both Dr. Welukar and Dr. Singh, mentioned. That is, not only the universities. Now, parents think, oh, this is one discipline, that is one discipline, this is a better discipline, that is a worse discipline. And we have been guilty of it. The universities and the institutions of, knowledge have been guilty of it. We have done it, and we have transferred our bad territorial arguments onto the society as a whole. Right. So, number one, problem is academics and our 19th century way to think about knowledge, right? Secondly, other kind of institutions, like you said, multiple bureaucratic institutions also formalize this, through grants, right? Through how they announce call for papers, through publications, what is even, let's take something like ranking, rating, publication rate, all of this, what is scholarly, all of these things are geared towards thinking as if, if you publish in your discipline, we will give you this. If you don't, you will. How do you decide all of these kind of things? Right? We need more and more journals to be able to. So journals and publications are again treated as territorial things. Right? So this idea of territorialization, it goes on to other institutions. So that is a huge challenge that I see. But worst finally, I'd like to end with one small point, right? And the worst part, and this is what really upsets me, is that not only have we translated this to the society at large, then it has filtered down to children. Right. And many times children, when I'll give you an example, especially, and I've seen this at OP Jindal, and Jindal is very innovative that way, the way it has done things. And, in our school, I have students, we have 5 majors, but 17 minors that students can do. And so basically people, the way I've set up the school is basically every student who comes in basically chooses to do what they want. They even design their own timetable and curriculum. And who do I face the most resistance from? Students. They're like, sir, but everybody else is doing something else like that. They're standard. I'm like, I don't want to have one size fits all curriculum. I don't want that. You have a different way to learn than I do, than your friend does. And we all need to figure out our pace of learning, our style of learning, our way of learning, our path of learning. Right. And that, I think it's a multi-level thing. I'm hoping I'm answering on what the challenges are. I think there's institutional, there's personal, there's academic, there's societal, and then goes down to students and their anxieties, because we have made them anxious, right? We've made them completely anxious. They are thinking, if I don't study what everybody else is studying, I'm going to fall back. It's great to hear 2 vice chancellors who are, sitting here and saying, this is crazy what's happening. All of this is very this thing. But thankfully all of this is happening now in the country. But I'd like to stop here, Neelu.
Thank you, Professor JAIDEEP. You beautifully talked about the shape of knowledge And the curriculum that we have, one size fits all. I remember as a science student in my first year, we had a course on history of science and another course on English for the student of sciences. And believe me, these two courses were the most sought after course for me. I loved these two courses. Our grades were not affected by the scores in these.
Absolutely. I'll give you, I sit on multiple committees and, Fulbrights and all of that. It's interesting when I come across the science students and, I sit there and I ask them a question. So tell me, what's the history of the discipline that you're studying in? None of them can answer this question. And I'm like, that's interesting. What's the history of the problem that you're working on? They don't know that. And then you realize, but glad to hear you were doing that, NEELU. Fantastic. Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to take more time. Okay.
Yeah, and like science is influenced by these philosophers. I mean, the modern science, modern biology is all about what René Descartes talked about. Breaking down into pieces. That's what we have been doing for the past 100 years, just breaking into molecules and all. But we talk about having professionals who also with specific skill sets, like say science graduate or an engineering graduate, but they also need to have the soft skills to excel in future. They need to be good at writing, to be good at speaking. They also need to be good at teamwork and collaborations. And one of the areas that I think as a person from science, where I feel that even my training, I would have a hope for a better training there, is the area of policy. So when we talk about professionals, we need to have professionals who can make or influence policymakers effectively, right? So I move now to Professor Pavan Gandhok, and I would want you to give your thoughts on it, but also I would want to get your answers on how academicians can become problem solvers. I mean, of course, Professor JAIDEEP talked about we being the problem itself, but you look at the parents or the students, they are going to graduate out. They're also looking for job opportunities, and we have to be pragmatic that they want to go for courses which can provide them with a livelihood, which is a very important question in our country with so much of a huge number of population there. We have to keep in mind that how to convince people or students, and or even open the doors. How do you have these job people who give jobs? Can they hire people with multidisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity? Can they create these avenues for the students? So yes, Professor Gandhok. Yeah.
Thank you, NEELU. Quite a challenge for a simple Sardar to be following and trying to say something intelligent when my esteemed panel colleagues have done a wonderful job of framing the issue. I wholeheartedly agree with all of them, and I do feel that I think the answer is so obvious that it's not either or, it's both. That really the bulk of the discussion should be framed about how to achieve this, which is I think what you're trying to get me to give some inputs on. And I'd like to build a little further on my colleague, Dean JAIDEEP's remarks, and his shape of knowledge was beautifully articulated as only an architect could possibly do. And of course, he's much more than an architect to illustrate the point that the panelists have been making. But I'd like to build further on some of his points about also understanding better why this problem exists, why this dichotomy framing exists. He certainly articulated some of the problems at the university end. Let me add a couple of other dimensions to this problem. And I also want to caveat by saying that even though you might perceive me as an academic, most of my life, I've actually been a practitioner. And so I'm more a Kshatriya in Brahmin territory, so to speak. And so I would like to bring, some of the practitioner perspectives here to address your point also when I'll come to the second part about the solutions. So first of all, in terms of understanding some of the other dimensions of why this problem exists, especially in the Indian context, this problem exists from a rat race mentality. This anxiety of parents and students because too few university seats, too few jobs. I mean, if you look at some of the stats, around in the papers recently about the government jobs versus applicants, it's typically, I think, in each of the states about a ratio of 500 or 600 applicants for every mentality population, growth in our demographic. Are you able to hear me okay?
There is some lag, but yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah, I'll try and speak a little more slowly. My network quality is not great. So this rat race problem creates this focus on marks rather than an interest or joy of learning, and comes at the expense of killing off students' intellectual curiosity. So the focus is on maximizing getting as close to 100% marks, which by definition can only be right or wrong answers, right? Yes or no type answer. Then so an entire variety of class of problems which have multiple answers or multiple solutions or no answers, etc., is kind of excluded from their imagination. The second component is that increasingly university education is failing as far as delivering the important skill sets are concerned. The ones that you described, NEELU, as are required, but you immediately assumed that more and more university level qualifications or formal courses of learning is the solution to because we come from a very caste-based society, or tilak lagane, ghanti bajane wali type thinking, is that we think that merely getting a qualification will enable us to get a desired better career outcome, which is also misplaced. Industry, in most roles, is not looking for a qualification. They're looking for well-rounded skills. You name any kind of category of job, nobody is saying, I only want a narrow discipline. Most people, employers. One component of this problem is that many of these skills need to be taught by practitioners. Okay, can you hear me okay now?
Professor Pavan, we are missing you in between. I think your connection is not good. It's a little poor here. We are not able to see you.
Yeah, let me do this. Let me sign out and come back in. Why don't you keep going with the conversation? I'll come back in and I'll pick this up.
Yeah. Thank you. So moving forward with the discussion where, Professor Pavan talked about this rat race mentality and the mindset that is there of the people. It's very difficult to change, right? But I would want, take the discussion forward towards looking at how do you think if changes in school secondary education curriculum is brought in, they can play a pivotal role in changing the mindset that we are talking about. Do you think governments and policymakers needs to focus on school education itself rather than now focusing on talking about interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity at the university and college level? So what are your thoughts on this, Professor Singh? Yes.
I would say that we all are part of this secondary education system. Problem is not with the syllabus and curriculum and the way. Problem is with the way we subject teachers are making demarcations. I mean, if you see the syllabus of class 6th, 7th, 8th, and also you see the syllabus of 9th, 10th, I think most of the places science and humanities go hand in hand. There's no demarcation, and it has been very prudently decided by people that to certain level, there should not be any demarcation between these subjects. and people will pursue whatever stream later on, but they should be well versed of history of science, history of biology, history of history, history of anthropology, history of everything. So that has been taken care, but problem is not there. Problem is there. We have not been taught well. With due regards to the teacher concern in the secondary education, we at the higher education has always been targeted for not producing good human beings, intellectual ones, and having, all those things. Syllabus, I mean, if you ask me personally, I have been taught very well as a science class 12th pass, with all the subject of humanities, Hindi to Sanskrit to English to agriculture and everything, with the utmost honesty. And I would say that that has paved my way. Though I am from science, but all humanities things are intact throughout in my life. And later on, when in the higher education, I decided to go for humanities, I was having no fear to leave science, leave geology, and go to management. I excel there also. And leaving management, gone to law. So 3 disciplines I read in 30 years, and I found no problem at all. And I loved all 3. It's not that I loved only one. I loved all 3, and every time I learn a new subject, I fall in love with that subject. And whenever I'm loving another. So what I wanted to say is, it is not secondary education. The teacher's training, the teacher's mindset, which Professor JAIDEEP CHATTERJEE also said, and the country should be, more focused for holistic teachers. Forget about holistic student can only be grouped, but the holistic teachers will be there. I mean, the holistic vice chancellors will be there. If one of the vice chancellor who is from the chemistry got XYZ award, always talk about chemistry is the highest discipline in the world, or maybe science is the highest, or technology, we can never bridge this gap. And then secondary education is definitely, little modification is always there and should happen with time. After 5 years, 10 years, more humanities or less humanities or science. But I think, frankly speaking, it is a teacher's issue and the way it has been taught in the system. And then it is a system with respect to changing syllabus, I think else. I tell you about the NEP also. People talk about NEP, this will happen, that will happen. I tell you, nothing will happen if teachers will not change themselves. And everything happened in the last policy also. We all are outcome of that policy, and we have no less than what NEP talks about. Let us be very frank about it. But then it all depends what kind of teacher, what kind of educational institution, what kind of, environment, educational environment you got. So I think this is my view. Absolutely, it is not syllabus, it is not anything else, but teachers.
Yes, Professor Singh, thank you for putting that out. You feel that teachers have to change. The teachers have to bring in what we think is creating those mindsets. I would go to Dr. Rajan for his thoughts on this thing. Where do we begin with, Dr. Rajan?
Yeah, it is. The answer is simple. Implementation is difficult. But for implementing it, you need to have a mindset. So we generally don't change our mindset, but we change our handset very often. So we will have to move from this perspective to that perspective in a lighter vein. But while listening to the other panelists, I wrote 3 F's. F are creating issues in our country. The first F stands for fear. If I bring something new into my classroom, will I lose my job? Will I get admissions numbers? Second F is finance. In our country, education should be financed 100%. 100%, not 2% or 6% or 4% of GDP. Because that is a big hindrance. Third is false truth, which I talked about. We will have to work on this 3F. If we work on this 3F, then the next most important thing is from the primary school, let us create an environment. हम हमारे घर में सब्जी बनाते हैं, कितने सारे इंग्रेडिएंट्स एक साथ आ जाते हैं. That kind of environment, if we can create in delivery, the curriculum, by stopping teaching, Don't teach. Stop teaching. Only create learning environment through activities. The moment you do it and catch them young, अभी graduation student को कुछ नहीं कर सकते हैं ज़्यादा. You just catch them young at the primary school or the middle school and create an environment of inter, multi and transdisciplinarity into the classroom. But are we equipped with that? We need those first three. Deal with the second, we will have to deal with the continuous training, which is missing. What is missing? Reflection is missing. We are not reflecting on our everyday teaching. We are not creating that kind of system that a teacher is reflecting and coming out and discussing with the stakeholders because of the fear. The moment you bring this looks to be very, very simple, but difficult, because we Indians are very good at giving suggestions. Knowing what to do is not the problem. Knowing what to do is not the problem. Not doing is also a little problem, but not allowing people to do is the biggest problem in our country.
Beautifully put, Dr. Rajan, the problems that we have: fear, finance, and false truth, and how we have to continuously reflect on where we are progressing and creating an environment, which I truly believe is that it's up. I believe that it's the environment and the policymaker, the government, the agencies, everybody has to come together to create that environment. We cannot work in isolation, ask one individual to change and one students to change or parents to change their mindset. It cannot go separately. We have 10 more minutes to go, and we have a question with us, which I would direct to Professor Chandok here. We have a question, Professor Chandok. Does industry truly value STEAM graduate, which is social sciences, liberal arts graduate, or are they looking for specific skills within traditional STEM fields? How can we bridge the gap between academia and industry needs, which you were talking about, and I think you would be the best person to answer this question.
Yeah, my sense is that most employers are looking for, well-rounded people. So I don't think they're necessarily looking for STEAM graduates. They're looking for people to display the skill sets that typically, would show that they are both, comfortable with numerical and quantitative skills, as well as have good, communication and people skills. So again, the point is, I think within the question, we're focusing too much on the tappa and the qualification rather than the display of the skill. So the answer is that people are looking for a wide, well-rounded ability to display the skill, regardless of what your qualifications are. The second part about bridging industry academia gaps. See, the thing is, we have to diversify the mode of the styles of educators. Within a university environment, you can't have solely you have to have who can impart skills. Also have to have
Take it forward, NEELU.
Professor,
learning how to swim. You can understand the conceptual thermodynamics behind all of that, but that doesn't mean that you get the skill.
Thank you.
Sorry? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. We missed you in between, but
So,
yes, please go. Yes, Professor Gandhok, please go.
One other point about closing the industry academia gap. One is, having a diversity of the type of people who are doing the teaching. But the second is also having a diversity in the type of learning approaches. We are we place far too much emphasis, especially in the Indian context, like I said, because of the problems about the tilak and the qualification tappas, we place too much emphasis on formal qualifications and learning. We also need to diversify a mode of learning and encourage people to have this ability to learn without being taught, this ability to learn on your own, because that's the highest ROI and the most valuable skill if you are trying to create the keep learning and adapting in as the demands keep changing. I mean, if you take may not necessarily be the most important skill within a matter of few months, right? You could argue it's already there with the level of AI tools that already exist, and no doubt with the so this learning and just achieving a qualification is less important than this ability to keep learning. And so the point is, most employers are looking for your ability to demonstrate skills, which they can assess fairly quickly with with simple modes of assessment that they would do. They won't make you sit exams and stuff.
Sorry to cut you, Professor Pavan. We just have 3 minutes left, and I would invite Professor Jaideep to give his closing remark on the dilemma of discipline. I think we agree that there is no dilemma. We know we both need STEM and social sciences, but yes, Professor Jaideep.
Thanks, Neelu. I don't know if this is a closing remark or not. That puts too much of an onus, but I'm just going to say 2 things I want to say, right? And I, hearing everybody else, like it goes back to both what Pavan was just talking about, but also this idea of job opportunity, pragmatism, ability to learn without being taught. And I think the fear issue that Dr. WELUKAR talked about is one. So it's very interesting. Okay, a few years ago, the New York Times had come out with a very interesting quote. It said, our children are going to be working on problems we have no idea about, using tools we have no idea about, right? I mean, please understand this, right? 2 years ago, pre-COVID, post-COVID, what we think about what is knowledge, what are things have changed completely, right? Things are changing almost every day, right? So, I mean, what Pavan was saying, completely second that. But here's the second thing I would like to add to this. Show me one problem in that world which comes with a label saying, I can only be solved by a chemist, or I can only be solved by a business person. No problem in the world comes with a label. Do you know that? Indeed,
great way of putting.
Most problems in the world and the most creative solutions to any problem in the world, you will notice, come from people working together from multiple ways, and they come together to solve a problem. So again, when we see our experience completely belies the way we think about knowledge and how we have structured our education system.
Yeah.
Number 3,
I think we have to wrap up. I'm so sorry for cutting short, but we just have a minute left. Yes, thank you all for joining with the discussion. It was a wonderful discussion, and I hope that we can carry this discussion further at any point. To understand, we know that the coming future is a future of uncertainty, and our children and the young people who are going to go out would have challenges that we have not faced, and therefore I think they need to be equipped with all the kind of skill sets to navigate the problems of the world. Thank you all for joining us with today. Lovely conversing with you. Thank you all. Thank you from Jindal Global University, WS 2024.
Thank you so much.